This is Canon Fodder, episode 61, live from, well, actually, we don't know where, but we're going to try and figure it out. I'm with my good friend, Kevin Kautzman. You know him from the Art of Darkness podcast. You know him as Twitter's resident theater geek, I guess. How would you describe yourself, sir?
I'll take it. I'm on Twitter at Kautzmania. It's Kautzmania. My name is Kevin Kautzman, and I am co-host and co-creator of the Art of Darkness podcast, a podcast about the dark side of creativity. We do biographical profiles of dead artists. We recently had a lineup change. My very good friend Brad Kelly departed to go work on a different project, and my other very good friend Abby Lucas, who's a filmmaker and a writer in her own right, has come on. And so we're in season 5 of that podcast. We've done it now for over 4 years. And people can go find that at artofdarkpod.com. But I'm also a playwright. And my play Moderation, I'm just going to get my plugs right out of the
Go
way
ahead.
here.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah,
beginning and
let's
end,
do it.
sure.
Yeah, my play Moderation, which is about social media content moderators losing their minds at work, premiered here in St. Paul, Minnesota last year. It's in print now from Broadway Play Publishing. I would love for people to go and buy a copy. The publisher, we can sell a few hundred copies. The publisher will notice that. That's good. They're very good people. That play is going to get a premiere now in London in March of 2025 at the Hope Theater, which is in Islington. And you can go to moderationplay.com. Tickets are already on sale. I'm also going to be doing an Art of Darkness live episode there at a venue called Verderin in March. So I'll be over in London, and Abby lives there. So we're going to do this Art of Darkness live episode in March. So moderationplay.com. And then if you go to artofdarkpod.com, the details about the Art of Darkness live episode are there. We're going to do like a short episode on Francisco Goya there, sort of by request, and that's going to be a lot of fun. The live episodes are a good time. The live ones are shorter than what we record. Like our usual core episode for Art of Darkness is 4 hours. We're not going to subject people to that. The live episode will probably be 75 minutes.
Wow, that's great. And Goya is a terrific subject. Is there gonna be a visual component? You're just gonna put his paintings up on the screen?
Yeah, they have a projector, and so I think we're going to use it, and we'll do our best to sort of, I guess, describe the paintings that we're talking about, so people who listen can kind of imagine them in the theater of the mind. But we also put the pod out on YouTube, and so we'll try to get a decent video of the live event. But it's also the kind of thing, like, if you're really really into it, you can listen along and pull up the images when you're listening. Yeah.
Yeah, my old background photo or cover picture on Twitter was Saturn eating his son.
I had that in the college house that I was sort of the ringleader of here at the University of Minnesota. Go Gophers! I had a huge version of that painting on the stairwell, and people would come over to party, and they'd be like, "What is this?" I'm like, "Well, it's Saturn devouring his children. We're here at a state school. We should
You should know that.
you should know what this is, right? This is what we're
Uh,
living through right now." But
well,
yeah, no, he's just, what a fascinating artist. And I'll admit, though, I know very little about him, and that's sort of the shtick and the fun of Art of Darkness, is that we're artists ourselves. We're not art historians, so we bring a kind of I don't know, like a naivete to the subjects we cover. So we get to sort of learn as we go. And I think, audiences appreciate that. We don't always wear the mantle of expertise. I think people have expert fatigue.
mhm.
It's like a community kind of learning as we go. And there's a huge back catalog. If you want to go again to artofdarkpod.com, if you don't know the show, there's 80 core episodes now. So you can get a free education there. Just anywhere you get your podcasts.
Well, I'll make sure to link all that below. Though, if anybody's listening to this podcast, they definitely know you and Art of Darkness. I've said several times that you guys are the spiritual godfather of Canon Fodder. There wouldn't be this show without Art of Darkness.
That's great. Hudson, my heart goes out to you. I'm not going to finish the gesture. Uh, no, but really, I appreciate that. No, that's great. I love that. I mean, when I was a younger person, I, I don't know. I've been inspired by so many great artists throughout my life. I mean, rest in peace, David Lynch, for example. Um, so like one of the things as an artist and as a creator that I aspire to is exactly that, to inspire other people to go and create. I really think that we can kind of maybe we can't save the world, but we can definitely save ourselves with creativity. And I think a lot of the agony that people the unnecessary agony that people endure in contemporary America and the West is because we've become passive consumers instead of creators. I mean, not to get sentimental right away, but I really believe everybody has a germ of creativity in them, and that um, you're really only like realizing your humanity when you're acting that out, and that can be something as simple as like starting a family. It doesn't always have to be. We're not all going to be Stanley Kubrick, but you're either creating or you're destroying. And I think so that's awesome, man. That's really cool. I mean, we get notes, periodically. I still forward them to Brad. It's really cool to hear from people going, wow, Art of Darkness got me through a hard time, or wow, Art of Darkness turned me onto Burroughs, and now I'm reading everything from I love that. That just makes me so happy to hear. So yeah, thank you.
I mean, well said, definitely. And to do a terrible segue, an artist that personally, uh, for me, was a big inspiration in my own, fiction work, Franz Kafka, specifically The Trial, which we're here to discuss today. Oh wow, you got the Dover edition. You got that for like $2.
I don't remember with inflation. I may have paid 9. I don't know. I'll probably be paying for it for the rest of my life.
It's so
Uh,
it's so funny because I've got the Everyman's Library copy.
oh yeah.
Because if there's a book that I want, I try to get Everyman's Library because I like the quality. They're my
Oh, they're so
favorite.
good. The
They're my
best.
favorite publisher. Even some of the contemporary stuff that I think is just done out of political correctness. I
Sure.
mean, they're just such well-made books, and the introductions are always really well done. They try and get some decent translations. I've at least found that they're good translations half the time. Uh,
Oh yeah, they don't phone it in. I mean,
so
it's a
so
beautiful
it's
thing.
just funny how opposite ends of the spectrum here. The Chad Dover Press paperback versus the Virgin uh, Everyman's Library book respector.
Listen, I could probably read it very, very poorly in the German, but I'm not going to bother. I can't burn that many calories.
Well, so it's and you're right. It was originally published in German, which is part of the wider narrative and the scholarship around Kafka himself and around the trial specifically. Kafka was not German. He was a Czech Jew from early 20th century. I think he passes when 1915, 1916. Uh,
No, no, he lived a little bit longer than that. Yeah.
well, anyway, he passes before the Second World War, right? So,
Yes.
uh,
He died in 1924.
got
So
it.
he
Okay,
lived to see the Great War. Yeah.
right. So he lived through the Great War. Didn't serve in it probably because of a few different reasons. One, he was he had a career, and also
hmm
he was battling tuberculosis at that
Right.
time. So not exactly frontline material, you'd say. And even at his healthiest, probably not. He was a svelte little kind of guy. Uh,
hmm
but it's interesting. A lot of the scholarship around this book centers on the fact that it was written in German. It's kind of this almost a betrayal. So some people have noted, and or at least he feels that it was a betrayal to write in this foreign language, even though it was the dominant cultural language of the region and of the era. So interesting that you bring that up right away.
Yeah, and that sense of the alien and being an outsider, it runs through all of his work, of course. I mean, you can't really critique Kafka without thinking about that. Um, and yeah, the fact that he wouldn't be writing in his sort of native Yiddish. He was writing in High German. It's just interesting to note.
So to introduce the book a little bit, Joseph K, never given a last name, but you can pretty much just say Joseph K and just put Joseph Kafka, for all intents and purposes. This is highly autobiographical, even if only in sort of fable allegorical terms, right? Uh,
Yeah, I
so
think if I
Joseph,
may, I think allegory is a good word. Yeah, but bigger somehow.
mhm.
Allegorical.
I saw the
Yeah.
word parable used a lot
Mm,
as well, so that might be more appropriate.
hmm
So Joseph K is a sort of middling guy, right? He's living in an apartment with a woman, though they are not involved whatsoever.
mm,
Uh, he is basically a bureaucrat, and on his 30th birthday, he is arrested. He is arrested by two unknown men
hmm
who tell him of his upcoming trial date and then leave him alone. And throughout his trial, he gets no details of the proceedings. He meets with the judges once, who prescribed to him that he is to be dead and he's to be killed, and they just let him go live his life. Otherwise, anytime he tries to get answers, he only leaves with more questions.
hmm
And at the end, probably the most famous part about this book is the ending, that he is shot in an alley like a dog.
He's stabbed.
Oh, sorry, stabbed.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, he's stabbed. Yeah, in the heart. Yeah.
So that's the big overview of the trial. What are your thoughts, man?
um, he's a bank clerk, so but he's also like on the rise in the bank. Um, I I find Kafka very difficult. I've
Hmm.
always found Kafka very difficult. Uh, I'm a big, I mean, it's Art of Darkness, right? I'm a big dark side guy. So I try to get into it. I love the metamorphosis. I sort of love what it represents. This too, fantastic. I watched the Orson Welles
Hmm.
film with Anthony Perkins, which is beautiful. I mean, I want to, even when we're done here, I might even throw it back on. Um, I He seems to almost go on a voyage from woman to woman. It is almost like the women are these like islands that he visits throughout
Right.
the story.
They're his
Um,
refuge from the madness, you could say. Or they're
yeah,
not
yeah,
great refuge. It's like,
no,
a shack with a bunch of holes in it is some sort of refuge in a storm, but it's not a very
sure.
good one.
Any port in a storm, right? And Kafka himself, he visited brothels his entire adult life. He had all kinds of sexual problems and anxieties and hangups, and I think that's reflected in this. There's this sense of uh, the great thing about the trial is this sense of ambient guilt, where you're hung up in this bureaucratic system, this system that has a plan for you, but will not reveal their cards. It's like playing poker against somebody who you never see their hand. They never turn their cards over. So how do you play this? You're playing this game where the rules are just completely um, ambiguous and ever shifting. And what I think this has to say to us now is quite a lot. I mean, I think we could sort of, anybody who's sort of been inside, I don't know, higher education, um, certain office environments, working environments, part of the game of status and social life in these environments is that if you have to ask what the rules are, you've lost.
Mm.
So there's this like, and it becomes abusive. Like the people with the power, it's very hard to sort of put your finger on describing this without sounding, I don't know, maybe crazy, but that's really what this novel's about. It's about these unspoken shibboleths. Well, we don't talk about that. How, what you talked about? What, you know, I think the film does a very good job of sort of showing that. And Orson Welles is so good in that, as the sort of, I think he's plays like a judge, right? And Anthony Perkins is just going, what are we doing? What is this? I want answers. I want an explanation. And the explanations are not forthcoming. Uh, because if they were, he could maneuver his way out of it. And I think anybody, again, if you've lived, if you're an adult and you've lived through the past 10, 15 years of culture and the world that we've sort of lived through, the language has changed, the words have changed, the acceptable words, and if you use the wrong word at the wrong time, you're cast out of polite society. If you have the wrong opinions, you're cast out.
Are you saying that
And
Franz Kafka was woke? Sorry,
I'm
I had to
saying
throw
that
that in there. Just
no, I right. I don't know woke or not, but I mean I think Franz Kafka would be perfectly comfortable or well, perfectly
perfectly uncomfortable. Yeah.
uncomfortable in a faculty meeting at Kenyon or at Yale or Brown or any
Well, what
higher,
was what was it? Evergreen College, the one with where the students basically demanded the president of the university or the college uh resign right then and there or something. It was the
sure.
one that Brett Weinstein taught at, I think.
Is it the
Anyway,
one in Washington? I
yeah,
know
yeah,
there.
yeah.
I've heard of this. And we all know what we're talking about here. And it's about finally, ultimately, it's about power. And I think the trial is a novella or a novel. I don't know, do we technically call it a novel, a novella about power and this individual who is being crushed by this totalitarian system that is so powerful it doesn't owe him an answer. And of course, you could read this in the sort of exoteric way where we're talking about politics and society. You could also read it in sort of the esoteric way or the spiritual way and go, he's describing kind of our existential condition, the fact we're all going to say die, and there's no answer. There's no, if you look at it from in a certain light, if you don't have faith or whatever, you can knock on the door and the final judge, there isn't even a whisper of an answer, of an
Yeah, you
explanation.
can wait for the law, and the doorkeeper can keep you out.
Right. Yes. And it's beyond your comprehension. They could even explain it to you and you would not possibly, you can't possibly understand it because you're just one individual subjective, experiencing being inside this wildly intersubjective, complex system. And in that way, it's like, and this is what makes Kafka great. One of the things is that he's cruelly honest about our circumstances. And when you think about the period that he's writing in and how fresh and how new this would have been to people, in that period, it makes sense that he has a word, Kafka-esque.
Well, and it's so interesting too because a man who is probably I could not think of a more polar opposite guy than H.P. Lovecraft.
Mm,
But you read the works of Lovecraft, which admittedly I've only read a few. I'm not as well versed as some, especially in our spheres, are. But he's scratching at the same sort of idea of the indifferent universe, of this
mm,
larger than yourself. He has the macro sort of old ones, right? The elder gods, right?
mhm.
Who you know look at humanity as less than we look at a fly, right? Whereas in Kafka, it's just people, right? There's it's a
Right.
it's this sort of secular humanist, but
Well,
bad. You know, it's
it's
like it's
it's European. I mean, you
yes.
really have you have the European type, the cosmopolitan European type, and then you have the American type, which is Lovecraft. Lovecraft is still the frontier is still being closed.
Hmm.
The old gods were very much still alive in America. They had already killed the old gods in
Right,
Europe
right,
by
right.
then. Yeah, I think that's fundamentally where that difference lies. But I really, I do appreciate the comparison between the two. You could do you could do the glass bead game and kind of compare them and come up with something really clever. No,
You
really. I
know,
mean, I think,
we're
yeah,
gonna have to do the glass speed game, you and I, because this is the second time you've been on and the second time that you've mentioned that.
I love that book.
You know, I'll put that on my list.
Sure.
I've seen several copies at this giant used bookstore near my house. That I'll.
It's a
It's a
door
thick boy.
stopper. Oh yeah. But I mean yeah, I remember when I read that in university, and that was like a game changer for me. It really edified me and kind of reinforced. As you know, I'm like anybody else. I'm studying the liberal arts. I'm doing history and philosophy, and I had a little crisis. I'm 19 years old. I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I read that book, and it was like, ah, yes, okay. There's a good reason to do this. We can't all become the manager at Panda Express.
Oh, well, I mean, we could only hope to aspire to such heights.
Sure, I hear the number two's a banger. That's what
It's
I've been
funny
told.
because a Panda Express just opened up near me, and I was looking at.
Great.
I was like, "Wow, all right, I've got a future."
Well,
I
listen,
mean,
yeah.
even that discourse, right, is so much like the trial, right?
Yes,
Because you have these quote unquote conservative influencers, right, who know the game is rigged, but
oh yeah,
they have to continue the lie because not only does it benefit them, but it keeps anyone lower than them from nipping at their heels,
that's right.
right?
Right, you
So,
just move to Cincinnati,
yep, get your
rent a one-bedroom apartment, and get your foot on the ladder at Chipotle.
and then maybe you too can sell RVs.
Right, right. No, it's surreal. I mean, that whole discourse is just so bizarre to me and so alien. I mean, it's like they're from a different planet at this point. Really, really strange. I really believe in higher education. I do. It saved my, I mean, it got me out of where I came from, and I'm very, very glad I went and I got a master's degree. I want higher education for all of my children. I mean, I understand that it's fraught and it's loaded with problems, and um, we have our sort of strategy to make sure that they don't get whatever. Um, I guess
Did you, this is
brainwashed.
totally out of left field and like a total tangent. Did you ever see that Zach, I think it's Radner film, Liberal Arts?
Oh no, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like this guy went to a liberal arts college. He goes back to visit his favorite professor. He sees a professor that he was like in love with, even though she's like a
Wait,
pretty Ratner, maybe Zach
they
or
no 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 no. The reason I've heard of this is that they shot this at Kenyon, and
yes,
Kenyon
yes.
had beautiful campus. Kenyon had of a very short-lived playwriting conference that I went to one year. So, and in any event,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, and well, like one of the plot surrounds this one character who's like obsessed with Infinite Jest, and he's like read it several times. It's he's like the embodiment of the 4chan lit board. It's
It's Art of Darkness Patreon.
yeah.
It's
No,
our guy.
my then girlfriend, now wife, showed it to me, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I only bring it up because it's like, yeah, this there is something to the liberal arts education. There is. I would not have an interest in reading if I didn't attend university.
Listen, I understand it's a mixed bag. I mean, you have to go in with a plan, and but all what I know is like I mean, I was first generation, and I didn't really even think about it in those terms at the time. But it was our it was our way out, and it worked out. It worked out for me. And and I don't know why there's this push to get everybody into the trades. There's this like sort of like it's also sort of like it's almost like there's like a mean spiritedness to it. There's like a maliciousness to it that cuts in all directions. Like they're saying, well, screw you for getting your degree in XYZ, but also like screw you, just go and the plumber's going to make more money anyway, so go be that. Go clean up my, you know what I mean? Like, and I respect the plumber. Of course I do. But it's just like the discourse itself is like super mean spirited and weird.
Again,
And if
I
Yeah,
think it's that foot. It's making sure that nobody's nipping at their heels,
well, right,
because
and of course, all these. I'm sorry, Tr, but all these guys, they live in L.A., they live in New York, they live in D.C. They're not, they're not writing these tweets from Oklahoma City or
The Cincinnati that is apparently a bastion of it's this untapped gem of potential.
I just don't understand why they have to like LARP like the American dream is alive and well. Like it's
Well,
just it's
because
cruel.
they are paid to
Sure,
believe
sure, of
it,
course,
right? Or at least
right.
to tell people it is such, because as soon as nobody buys into it,
Hmm.
they are like fucked. They
Yeah,
and I try not to curse on this podcast, but really, truly boned. Uh,
yeah. No, you're right. Because that's the thing that they're sort of theoretically conserving, isn't it? That's
right. They're
a house
conserving their
and
lifestyle.
sure, sure, sure. And right, yeah, and the golden retriever and the 2.5 kids and yeah, yeah. It's really artificial and kind of gross. Um,
Anyway,
well, no, no, but you're right, and we can relate that back to the trial. You're right because it's like sort of and I occasionally I talk to young guys. I've heard from a number of guys. They'll DM me and go, wait, how do you do copywriting? Because that's how I make my. Well, what was the word that Kafka had? Kafka had a word for his day job. I was just looking it up. It's a German word, Brotberuf, which means bread job, and his father often referred to his son's job as an insurance officer as a bread job. All right, so my bread job is copywriting. I write for different companies. So I'll hear from guys occasionally, and gals, Zoomers, who go, "What? Wait, how do you do this? What are you doing?" And I've helped at least one person. I'm proud of this. I've helped at least one person like start a career. It can be done. It helps to have a bachelor's degree. It helps to have an English degree. It helps to have that higher education. Um, and Yeah, some of them are struggling. They're living at home with their parents into their 20s. I mean, they don't know, and they're politically alienated from their parents now. I mean, it's rough out there, man. Like and I have young children. My children, when they turn 18, nothing changes.
no,
Nothing.
no, exactly. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day, that really, unless there are some drastic changes that happen, and let me step on my soapbox real quick. Uh, Intergenerational households need to make a return for several reasons. My wife and I, we own our own home. Shocking for people our age, but we've got a kid on the way,
Oh, God
and
bless you.
thank you, thank you. And we're thinking like, all right, well, this we were kind of barely scraping by before. We can make cuts here and there, but it's still, it doesn't seem like enough half the time. Maybe we should move in with your parents at some point. And
Mm,
some people hear that and it's like, oh no, I can't go backwards. And maybe I don't have enough pride. Maybe maybe it's that. Maybe I'm willing to suck it up, uh, uh to make sure that my kid has everything that they need. And honestly, part of that is having more than just their parents in their life. uh
right. It's all so artificial. It was concocted in on Madison Avenue and fabricated. I mean, it's a sales job. and it's also like a design. I mean, and again, we can relate this all back to the trial. Okay, so let's say the trial that we're talking about now is to be a young person in America with a declining standard of living relative to your parents, having to navigate the social stigma of accepting these new circumstances. It's very much like what's described in this book. Again, all the rules have changed. There's been the great rug pull, the great bait and switch. You were sold a bag of lies, and now you have to navigate reality, and nobody's bothering to explain the truth to you. They have no incentive to. It's PvP, right? Like the trial is a PvP reality. Like the only place where he can find respite is among these women, like these whores and these nightclub dancers and everything. It's really deeply tragic.
Sounds like
Yeah.
Gabe from the Tukey's Mag guys.
Oh yeah.
It's just a shot at
No, I
Gabe.
understand. We got to take a little tasteful shot at Gabe. I love those guys.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
they're great. As much as I hate
yeah.
them, they're great.
Sure, sure, sure. No, and now we can draw parallels. You can sort of see like, okay, well, maybe we're not like literally facing a court date, but we're up against all kinds of stuff in this
But
contemporary environment.
we are right because as you said before, you are a Christian, I am a Christian, right? And there's we can probably get into that a little bit as well. But we do have a court date, at the end, and
That's
there's
right.
there.
I
I
hadn't thought about it in those specific terms, Hudson.
I
I
will
have to.
say this, Kafka. I will pray for Franz Kafka that um, that mercy was shown to him because it certainly wasn't shown to him in life.
Yeah, yeah.
And
He had a.
and and that's the thing about the trial too, is that it is the absence of God.
Mhm.
This is what life is if there is no redemption.
Right.
That
Yes.
it's just, we were talking about this earlier, and you mentioned original sin, but in we were in the green room, right? And you mentioned original sin, and that is exactly right because, Joseph K wakes up on his 30th birthday, and it doesn't matter if you wake up on your 30th, if you wake up when you're 15, if you wake up when you're 99, right? You in you have a judgment day, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, your mic is a little weird now.
Oh yeah. I just switched to my. I can switch back.
Is that better?
Yeah, yeah, sorry. It's just it
No,
was
no, no worries.
uh anyway. Uh, I'll cut that out probably. Maybe not. I don't know.
Eh,
Uh, we all have a judgment day, right? We all have a moment when life ends,
yeah.
right? Uh, for Joseph K, it was on his 31st birthday, and he had no he had nobody that he had no advocate, right? If you think about the story of Job, right? One of the things that Job is begging for is an advocate, somebody who I think actually the word is redeemer, right? It's
Mm,
because one of the things, at least in my biblical commentary that I read, is that this is one of the things that prophesizes Christ, because God, to experience man's sin, right, he had to become man, right? Even though Christ was sinless, right, he could not. God knows everything except limits, right? So by coming down as a man, and seeing the world from the eyes of a man, he could better understand his creation, right? Better empathize with people who sin, with people who are imperfect, because he is perfect. How can the perfect understand what is not perfect in some ways, right? Which is, part one of the holy mysteries. Uh, and anybody in the comments who wants to call me out for heresy, it's not done intentionally, but out of ignorance. But yeah, I gave you a little bit to chew on there, Kevin. I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, you're right to draw that parallel with the trial, and of course, Kafka was Jewish, so he's coming at this from a very different faith tradition, or even like an absence of faith, and it's valuable for us to sort of consider his perspective, which is just so bleak and so
Yeah,
unrelenting.
Zero HP Lovecraft. In one of my conversations with him, like when I first got on Twitter, he relayed to me the story of Franz Kafka writing in the middle of the night and just laughing manically at what he was writing. And it's kind of like Goya, who
Hmm.
didn't put those what are they, the black paintings, I
Yeah, the
think.
black paintings. Hmm.
Yeah, he put Saturn devouring his children in his dining room. So whenever he was eating, that's what he was looking at. It's like
Sure.
there are some messed up people out there, man. Like wow, this is quite a world we live in. And those are
And
the ones that
mm,
didn't kill and eat a bunch of people, you know?
right. Well, and I love that he was an insurance guy. I just think
Oh
it's so
yeah.
perfect, right? Like, and it's such a shame the direction America has gone, because, of course, our whole program, at least initially, was to get away from this, to get away from the direction Europe was going, to get away from everything being slapped onto a grid and put into a spreadsheet, and everyone. And unfortunately, in the past 50 years, we've sort of speed run catching up to that, and even lapped them in many ways. It's unfortunate. Um, and maybe we see a little reprieve from that now, because of the recent political turn. But I don't think that you really
Right.
can
Yeah, I
put
mean,
that
America's
genie
great
back in the
again.
bottle. Sure,
I mean,
just like
yeah,
that,
everything's fine,
just like that.
we signed a
But
couple
I
executive orders and we're good.
Sure, it's that easy. This business about us all having a date, with judgment, is goes even past Christianity. I mean, the ancient Egyptians had this vision of the afterlife, where they would be judged by Osiris in the afterlife, and they would have their heart weighed against the feather of justice, right? And if their heart weighed more than the feather, they would be devoured and sort of cast into hell. And of course, they all like to imagine their heart would be lighter than the feather, and they would go on and so forth. I mean, this idea of like the ultimate judgment is archetypal, and and of course, like, I'm not just a Christian, I'm a super Christian, I'm a Catholic. So, but I mean, the joke about it, and I've sort of gone away from this. I don't think about this so much anymore, but everybody talks about Catholic guilt. Catholic guilt. What is Catholic guilt? Well, I mean, it's not unlike sort of what's described in the trial, this sort of ambivalent sense of paranoid. Am I sinning? Did I do something wrong? People seem to think I've done something wrong, and so there's so much to unpack from this novel. That's how you know it's a masterpiece. I mean, he didn't publish it in his lifetime. Max Brod published it posthumously, but
It's not even finished. So
right.
the fact that, and you can tell, there are some parts that just kind of drag on, you
Hmm.
know. But at the same time, he also wanted them burned after his death. So it's like, you get what you get, right? Uh,
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I love all the sort of nasty business around Kafka. He's one of these like figures that um, just kind of keeps on giving. I mean, I have to plug, we did an episode on Kafka on Art of Darkness. We had
which is
the
why I had you on.
Hey,
I listened to that episode and I was like, all right, here's somebody I can talk about one of my favorite books with.
there you go. Yeah, and we had the fellow on who recently translated the diaries into this really, really handsome volume. It's one of the best things about Art of Darkness. I get to meet people who do stuff like that, like real genuine scholarship, real expertise. Like, I love that. I love talking to somebody who devotes years to that kind of thing. Just incredible. Yeah, Kafka's one of those lives that you can just sort of unpack. And it's wild too to think that he was writing this. I think he was writing this right up into the run up of the war. And when you think about what that war was, and how we've never recovered from World War One, as a society, or what's left of it, like, what a wonderful he was. Kafka's one of these great examples of like artist as nerve ending of the culture.
Well,
Um,
and it's funny too because like I've mentioned before, the last time we spoke was on Demian, right?
Hmm.
And that book, German soldiers had that book with them in the trenches.
Mm.
It was, or no, rather it was published after the war. Excuse me. But German soldiers who had gotten back from the war felt kinship with the book.
Yeah.
So, and you can much of what I forget his name, not Max Demian, but the main character of the book, uh,
I can't remember. Emil Sinclair. Yeah,
Sinclair. Yes, much of
Sinclair.
what
Yeah.
Sinclair is going through is itself sort of a Kafka-esque trap.
Yeah.
His life, like, so really just something was in the water in Europe in the early half of the 20th century, where maybe it was the rise of atheism, maybe it was
Mm.
communism, maybe I don't know
It's
what.
all of it.
Yeah.
It's all of it, and it's really what it is it's totalitarianism. It's the idea of, I think by 1910, by the first war, the railroads had all been laid, and we're talking about Western Europe, of course.
Hmm.
The railroads had all been laid down. There was no frontier. The frontier in America had closed. I think there was a sense happening that America was taking over
Hmm.
in terms of the human imagination, and the future. So you're stuck on this like tiny continent. Lights are going up. The grid is like going down over the continent, and um, and then you have these ideologies, these totalizing secular ideologies. You have the one that's sort of contra market, markets and capitalism in Marx, and then you have, it's either implied or like probably explicitly stated too, you have capitalism, which is total. Capitalism is a total
I mean,
ideology. It
especially
takes,
these days,
well, I mean, yeah,
it's gotten to the point that because it's like liberal, the Western liberal order, let's say, right? For a time, I think it's breaking apart as we sort of speak. History is
in
back.
Salah.
Uh, but for a time, it was greater than ideology. It's
Yeah.
it's it's that what is water moment.
Absolutely, it is, and I think the European soul, the sensitive European urbane soul in 1915 or 1910 they're already there because they've got railroads, they've got, again, everything's on a grid, everything's in a spreadsheet. I mean, the East India Company's been was 400 years old at that point. The idea that you're like this sense that we have that you're sort of born into a spreadsheet and other people have an idea for your entire life, and your individual soul has nothing to do with their idea. You're a male born in X year on X date in X hospital in this zip code, you know, out of wedlock or in wedlock, and they've got an idea what your life is going to look like. They really do. And it's been like that for a long, long time. And so I think Kafka's responding to those forces. And then you think World War I comes along and how right on he
Right,
was.
because
Yeah.
even something with the draft, right? You
Mm.
become a number, and
Yeah.
and your number gets called, right? And in fact, or something like, oh geez, probably, if not my favorite book, definitely up there. All Quiet on the Western Front, where
Wonderful book.
you have these guys who all join the war together, and they are pushed into the machine by their society. Their society sees the everybody, the people who should have known better, let's say, right?
Hmm.
They push these young men into this meat grinder because the system has set it up so that the meat grinder exists. It's like, well, we can't
Right.
not use this meat grinder that we
Of
have.
course. Right. And then there's that thing, and getting back to our friendly influencers who want us to go to work at, or want my son to go work at Panda Express, right? That there's that perennial, I mean, we're talking about Saturn devouring his children again, that perennial malice toward young men, that understanding that they have to be
These are your
hazed.
replacements. You
Right.
are going to die one day,
Hmm.
and actually the guy that that kid over there is
Hmm.
gonna do what you do, maybe better, but at least exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's like one of the arguments that people have against women in the workforce, right, is that, and I've seen this meme done really, really well, is that if a woman takes maternity leave, right, it's her desk is just taken up by somebody else, you know? Whereas, if you're a mother, you are somebody's mother forever. And actually, like, no, especially young men, uh, they don't love anyone else like they love their mother,
Mm,
you know?
true.
Uh, so in that vein, it's like, yes, Mr. Conservative influencer, Mr. Commenter, Mr. Guy who is important and has a lot of Twitter followers.
And a lot of money. They always
Right,
have a lot of money.
right. And hey, God bless them for making money, whatever. Uh, I'm not doing too shabby myself, I have to say.
All right, right
Looks
on, TR
looks
Hudson. I
looks
love
like
that. You get that podcast, Luker.
oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. My brute, what was it? Or my brot, my bread job,
Where was it? Yeah, I love you. Brotberuf. Yeah,
brotberuf.
literally just
My
means
bread
bread
job.
job.
My
Yeah.
bread job has stacked some bread. A little.
Nice.
Again,
Okay. All right. Right on. Right on.
enough to pay off my debts.
Oh, good for you. That's great.
Uh, somewhat. I'm climbing out of the hole.
Did you
Anyway,
buy the Trump meme coin?
no, of course not.
I missed that thing too.
Yeah, no, I just heard about Bitcoin, actually. I don't know if you've heard of it.
All right. Okay.
No, no, crypto scares the crap out of me, just because I haven't put enough time into understanding it. So it's this monolithic thing that f- I, I don't know. Part of me thinks that like the guys who know a lot about it have talked themselves into it because at the end of the day, it's not tangible.
You know we don't have to turn this into a crypto conversation, but who's really good on this? And you have to kind of go into their deep cuts, paywall. And then I don't know if they've talked about it a lot on Main, but the book club from hell guys, when
Mm.
they start proselytizing Bitcoin, they they're so passionate about the political angle of it. Um, and it's very interesting because they're Aussies, so they have this outsider perspective. They're not Americans, and they acutely feel kind of the cruel hegemony of the petrodollar. They're very aware of what's happening, and so when they talk about crypto, they really make a strong
I'll
case
have to
for it.
I'll have to look into it
Yeah,
again. I see some guys who pass immediate judgment on this, like, oh well, it's not like a physical asset, so blah blah blah. I'm not there. It's
yeah.
just it's again. I comment. I'm saying this as somebody who's ignorant to it rather than somebody who has a dog in the fight, right? Uh, but that's nowhere near where we were. So, uh, yeah, and hey, maybe cryptocurrencies are in and of itself a Kafka-esque trap. Who's to say?
I
Uh,
meme coins. Listen,
when you get rug pulled, can you?
Oh yeah, it's a sinking feeling when you throw three
When I
thousand
see
dollars at it. Yeah,
people buying hawk coin and then are surprised that
Hawk
the
Tua.
girl who got famous for making a blowjob joke
Yeah.
did not have their best interests in mind when she created her meme coin. I feel, to borrow another German term, I feel a little Schadenfreude.
There you go. Very good. A very fine German word.
Yeah,
Leave it to the Germans to have a word
I took
for.
German in college. I don't remember much of
Hey,
it, but
sure, sure. Yeah, I'm sorry I derailed you there. You were saying something else about, but da da da. Yeah, we'll get back on
what
it.
was I talking about before we got into this?
Well, I don't remember
I
because
think
we.
we were back to railing. Oh, right. So yeah, so these guys are going to replace you one day.
Yeah, right.
And oh, actually, I just thought of something really pernicious. It's like the reason that they bring in the H-1Bs and people from around the world is because they know they are inferior.
Oof. What they really want there
So they
is
won't be replaced.
they want indentured servants.
Well,
They
yeah,
want
yeah, yeah.
people who are dependent on them to a degree that money can't buy. You have two equal applicants. You got one kid from Detroit of any color or complexion. Let's put race aside,
Right, right.
and you got one H-1B who's coming in, and the exact same quality of education. Who's going to
Wow.
want it more? The one who's, well, let's just, again, hypothetically, right? They have the same quality of education. One's an American, one is an H-1B, whose visa is going to be tied to their employment. Who do you hire? Who's more likely to stick around? Who's more likely to be compliant? Who's more likely to show up early and leave late? It's the H-1B every time. And it's literally like a freebie for your company to give away. You're giving away a visa. It costs you nothing. You're leveraging the full authority and power of the federal government. It as like an HR perk. You know,
And you get to feel good about yourself doing
of
it.
course, and you get to slap a diversity because these H-1Bs aren't coming from Wales. Yeah, no, it's disgusting. I mean, don't even get me started.
No, well,
It's unfair, and I don't blame I don't blame the H-1Bs for any edge you can get in this system, wherever you come from, take it because this system is, I mean, bottom to top rotten. You've got to take every angle you can possibly get. I don't care if you're from Senegal or
India, Nigeria,
India
China,
or
whatever.
Detroit. You got to take every angle in this system. So in any case, yeah, what were you going to say, Hudson?
Well, no, it's that these guys who see the system crumbling apart, right? And they see the next generation trying to come up and trying to at least live in the system, right? I honestly think that the boomer generation at least implicitly knows that they messed up.
Oh yeah.
They know
Oh dude,
they
they
know
have to
they
be
fucked up.
in agony. I mean, like I can't even imagine. And again, hashtag not all boomers. I
No,
mean, we
I
have to
love my
accept
father
that,
so
of
much. Like
course.
he's a
I'm
great man,
I mean,
and
and yeah, I mean, and like living now today, like Hudson, in 30 years, are we going to feel responsible for the direction this country takes? Like,
mhm.
how much control do we have? Like, I think that gets back to this book. It's like one person against this system. Yeah.
And my friend Dimes, to bring it back to cryptocurrencies for a second, my friend Dimes said to me once, we look at or future generations are going to look at the millennials the way that we look at boomers for
Uh,
what we did to the crypto market and what we did to the potential of cryptocurrencies.
ooh.
And
Hmm.
I like shook my head and agreed, and I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about, but the little bit that I do know, I'm like, oh yes, we were promised this blockchain technology,
And we
this
turned it into a casino for
yes,
Fartcoin. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's like, oh, everybody jump on. Doge was not supposed to be a blueprint for what how to strike it rich. You know, it was the meme coin.
Yes.
Before Dogecoin, if my history is correct, you had serious people trying to create something that existed outside of the system as it exists.
Well, it's complicated. I mean, there was a lot of pump and dump scamming happening. I mean, in 2017, there was a whole cycle of pump and dump scams. I mean, the thing about Doge is that they just did away with any pretense.
Mm.
And so, in a funny way, it's more honest.
What was? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, there was the. I was listening to a podcast the other day, uh, and the line. Somebody had this brilliant line. I think it was where they quoting from somebody that said, "Once the revolution ends, once you recognize that it's a revolution, once you start saying the word revolution, then it becomes parody."
Right.
And that there you go. Like once people recognized what that Bitcoin was quote unquote revolutionary, you get something like Doge, and you get meme
Sure.
coins.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about crypto for a long time. I'm in it very heavily. And I have been since 2020.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, I mean, and the writing that I do for the bread job is crypto related. The it's it's all Bitcoin. The way to think about it, it's all blockchain, and the granddaddy of them all is all Bitcoin. And everything, all of these meme coins, everything else in the space, with rare exceptions, are all kind of derivatives of Bitcoin. So if you want to make a bet on a meme coin, you got to kind of time it relative to Bitcoin. Because if like Bitcoin's trading at like 106 right now, if it goes down to 75 for some reason, right? Like Trump says something, or some law gets struck down, or any number of things could happen, right? An exchange goes bust.
I mean,
Um,
Ross Ulbricht just got
I
pardoned, so
know,
I think we're going to see
based,
a bump.
based. Listen, yeah. We're in the seventh inning of this cycle. I'm just going to say that. But I mean, like if Bitcoin goes down to 70K
Can we
right
go to
now,
extra innings? I have to buy something really quick.
honest to God, Hudson, not financial advice, the thing to do might just be to buy some stable coins and wait for the eventual nuke. Because this is not sustainable. We're in a huge bubble right now.
Right.
You don't want to be buying when everybody's like, you got to be buying. You want to be buying when everybody's crying. Um, but
Thanks, Mr. Potter.
well, you get it. But it's all blockchain that you're buying. Again, if Bitcoin goes to 70K right now, all the memes die, everything dies, we reset, all the liquidity gets flushed, and we start over again.
I'm going to stop
And
seeing Cybertrucks on the road.
you certainly stop seeing wrapped Cybertrucks on the road, Hudson.
So after you micturated, we were talking about meme coins, but we can get back to the trial. I don't want to take up too much more of your time.
I would tell everybody to go and watch the film. I mean, I know people
I
are
actually
busy.
haven't seen the film, unfortunately.
Wow.
I wish I had.
I mean, I think it's on Tubi right now. Watch it on Blebo. Blip blop. It's whatever. But it's so good. And it's Anthony Perkins. I did not know. Yeah, Orson Welles, man. And he's right. He's directed it and he's in it. And it's very it just feels very now. Feels very I'm gonna, like I said, I'm probably gonna
Paul Masson fame. That Orson Welles? the California champagne hawker?
Orson Welles of The Critic fame. Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah. What is it? The commercial about the peas.
Yes, the green
Yes.
and green penis. That's terrible.
Truly one of the greatest of all time. And it's an Orson Welles film, so it's just stylistic and sexy, and Anthony Perkins is great in it, and it's cool to see him in. I associate him immediately with Psycho. It's cool to see him in a leading man role, and just perfect casting.
Actually, I've got Anthony Perkins' face in my head at the moment. I'm looking at a picture of Franz Kafka, and honestly, they kind of look. There's a bit of a similarity there. It's just those dark, brooding eyes, I think, in the eyebrows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's this sort of uncanny, not a typical leading man necessarily, kind of an odd look. Yeah. Good movie. Lots of Dutch. Yeah. Lots of Dutch angles, and kind of the set designs are incredible. It's just one of those movies you can just throw in the background. Maybe you watch it like a hawk the first time, but it's kind of the thing you want to. I don't know. I might put that movie on perennially. Yeah, really enjoy it.
And then staring at your Goya painting,
right, when I'm not devouring my children. Yeah, the trial. I don't know. What should we just read a random passage of it? What do you think?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, why not?
I'm here for you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you. That's so nice. I'm married, so I never hear anything like that. I never married with children, right? This is off page 101 of the fine Chad Dover edition. So let's just read. The deputy director seemed very good at appropriating everything that Kay was now forced to give up. But was Kay not giving up more than he absolutely had to? by running off to some unknown painter with, as he had to admit, very little hope of any vague benefit. His renown was suffering damage that could not be repaired. It would probably be much better to take off his winter coat again and, at the very least, try to win back the two gentlemen who were certainly still waiting in the next room. If Kay had not then glimpsed the deputy director in his office, looking for something from his bookshelves as if they were his own, he would probably even have made the attempt. As Kay, somewhat agitated, approached the door, the deputy director called out, "Oh, you've still not left." He turned his face toward him. Its many deep folds seemed to show strength rather than age, and immediately began once more to search. "I'm looking for a copy of a contract," he said, "which this gentleman insists you must have. Could you help me look for it, do you think?" Kay made a step forward, but the deputy director said, "Thank you, I've already found it." And with a big package of papers, which certainly must have included many more documents than just the copy of the contract, he turned and went back into his own office. One more para here. "I can't deal with him right now," Kay said to himself, "but once my personal difficulties have been settled, then he'll certainly be the first to get the effect of it, and he certainly won't like it." Slightly calmed by these thoughts, Kay gave the servitor, who had already long been holding the door to the corridor open for him, the task of telling the director when he was able that Kay was going out of the bank on a business matter. As he left the bank, he felt almost happy at the thought of being able to devote more of himself to his own business for a while. Immediately, I'm just going to say, it reminds me of awful jobs I've had.
Right. I was thinking, it was like, you know that your job sucks when you're looking forward to trying to do your own affairs, even though the affairs are really nasty. It's like, oh boy, I get to go do errands. I get to go stand in line at the post office, like,
Right.
but then also at some point, I don't think there was a line like this, but you have to think that the neurotic Joseph K is like, I can't die. I have to get to work, like people are so attached to what they do, and especially these days to an unhealthy degree, that you have these, if you have these crises, one of the first things people think is, well, how is this going to affect my job?
Yes. Right. And he's the patron saint of the bug man. And it's like
Literally.
we're supposed to live this way. Like some of us are trained and we're supposed to live like high school, maybe college, job. I mean, and this is the boomer kind of thing, right? Or even the generation prior. 40 years in the same career,
And become a
right?
company man.
Become a company man. And for like the first 15 of those years, you're supposed to be asking for a half day. Have you ever asked for a half day, TR? Like,
No.
okay, I have. You want to blow your brains out. You're like, I have to go to the dentist and I got to send an email to somebody or say, I need a half day on Friday.
No,
It's
luckily I have a job that is pretty understanding. It's literally just a message in Teams.
and that's great. And things have changed a lot. I'm a little older than you are. But there's still that culture, and there's somebody tomorrow is going to have to ask for a half day. Like and is an adult asking another adult for that. And again, things have become a little more enlightened, but it's like that's the vibe that I pick up from those couple of paragraphs. And then this paranoia, like your boss or like one of your colleagues who's maybe senior to you is like rifling through your stuff. Like now we don't have any physical stuff for them to rifle through, but we all know they can read Slack messages.
Right.
Nothing's private, so and so forth.
There's I know a couple of people who work in finance, right? And this story was relayed to me, and even it might have even been in just some forum or whatever, but I know enough people who have, confirmed it, where they're junior guys at a finance firm. They're making a lot of money, right? So
Mhm.
you can't feel like too bad for them, I guess. But they'll get asked, or not even asked. Somebody, their boss will say, "I need a slide deck presentation for quarter two growth, whatever, by Monday, and they ask him Friday afternoon.
They do it on
And
purpose.
yeah, exactly, and not even to not even to not even need it until the following Thursday.
But they want to see it on Monday.
Right, and it's like, oh man, you want to talk about like a power game,
Sure.
and everybody says, I think it was like what, 70% of Goldman Sachs employees at one point in their career said, I'm working here so that I can bring the system down from the inside.
Oh, of course.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
man, you have no idea. I don't even think the top C-suite people at these companies at some point, it would be interesting. I wonder what it would take for the CEO of Goldman Sachs to get something from the copy room. Like if he had to go down, if he did his own little Franz Kafka-esque experiment where he's not who he is, right? But he actually does his own drudgery for like 5 minutes, right?
Hmm.
And
Sure.
trying to navigate the bureaucracy. And this is this is the bank, right? This is the investment bank of the world, pretty much,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Imagine that kind of bureaucracy, right? Whereas it's pretty streamlined, right, for efficiency's sake, because they have to be. Take that as like a government employee, where efficiency is not prioritized whatsoever.
Sure.
Imagine Donald Trump trying to get a piece of paper himself, or like he has to fill out
Right.
his own driver's license renewal form.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and we deal with these little petty things. Like I'm a minor householder in a second, third tier city in flyover, and I have a tankless water heater in the basement that I bought for my little modest little starter home that I
I'm
have.
sorry that you did
And
that. I'm sorry you
I
fell for it.
I really like it. I actually like it. It's good so far, TR. And
My
in any
dad
event,
hates his.
oh, really? Well, I like mine, but it's been months, but I had to call the inspector because they have to go in and they have to come in and inspect it for some reason. I don't know why. It's some plumbing inspection. The company that installed it didn't facilitate this, which is a bummer. And I open my mail and I try to avoid my physical mail. I should
You never know
probably
when there's anthrax.
well, there you are. Yeah, especially as a podcaster. Um, but and I get this message and it's like, you because I remember talking to this guy and it's like one guy and he's the inspector and you call him and I'm a night owl, Hudson. And his letter is like, hey, you've had X number of days. We haven't heard from you. You need to have somebody come. And I have 4 children. I've got 3 young children at home. I'm busy, man. I don't have time. I got a million things. And it's like, well, you didn't have your inspection, but I remember talking to this guy. So I call the number and I leave a message, but sure enough, his voicemail is like, remember, you have to talk to me between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 9 a.m. to book an inspection.
Good Lord.
This guy has got himself in a position. He only picks up the phone 90 minutes a day. That's it. That's his job. And I wonder what his salary is. And that's just one dude. And God love him, but you're telling me that his job couldn't be automated away by a website with a form? like and then now you have to imagine that times 100 million people, and that's the world that we're in. And
And if,
Kafka was
dear listener, if you're feeling a little bit of existential dread, you're going to love Franz Kafka.
right, because Kafka's like simultaneously very good at describing what it's like to deal with that guy and what it's like to be that guy. Like I feel bad for that guy. That job sucks. You don't want to, but and so that guy has to negotiate, and he has a boss who he hates, and then and all of it. It's just, but this is modern life. I mean,
So we're running close to time, but I would be remiss if we didn't talk about Before the Law, which is the
mm,
little parable that Joseph K. is told by the priest, right,
mm,
in the
hmm
church, about the man standing outside looking for the law, a man of the country looking for the law, only to be stopped by the doorkeeper uh, until his death.
Hmm.
It's
Right. And that,
probably the
mhm.
most it's probably the most allegorical or most like a parable piece. It was its own separate piece of fiction that Kafka had published at some point in his life, and then he re-included it in the trial. So it was definitely the thesis, if books have a thesis.
Mhm.
And I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's how the film begins. It begins with these very interesting kind of drawings, and it describes that little story. So yeah, you'd have to describe it to me again to get like a deeper opinion. What do you make of it,
So
Hudson?
I think again we're talking about the the world without redemption,
Hmm.
right? We're talking about the law as not even as something to follow, but something to punish you with, right? That you are born into a world that basically you shouldn't exist. So the law is created as a way to chain you to something until you die, and
Mm,
as you if you search for it, you won't ever be able to truly grasp it, and then you just end up dead. There's this the doorkeeper is he might not even be learned in the law. He probably isn't. He just knows that his part of the law is to keep you out.
hmm.
But there are several interpretations that the priest goes over, and it, given my few flubs, it's been a while since I actually read this one. So go ahead and
No,
pillar.
no, no. Yeah, I mean, there's this idea like this inaccessibility of the law. Have you ever dealt with anything like in a court outside of,
I got a
I don't know.
speeding ticket not long ago, and I was like, you
Okay.
know what? I can already see where this is going. I'm just going to pay the thing,
Right.
even though it was definitely yellow when I was turning.
I'm not going to like say specifics here, but I've had a few little things, and the anxiety of a court date, whether it's a divorce, whatever, just rattle it down, is extraordinary. You're confronting um, the system, literally the state. Like when do you really encounter the state in all of its sort of force? Um, with like real stakes. I mean, I guess it's when you pay your taxes or
Hmm.
when like a cop pulls you over or something like that. We most of us spend our lives trying to like circumnavigate it. We're trying to like you just
Right,
don't
right.
want to. We're trying to avoid it. Well, in a situation like that, you have to go in to you're not on your turf. I mean, these are the people who have a monopoly on violence, and they can put you in a cage. It's very frightening. It's a lot of responsibility. Um,
Unless you're one of those delusional sovereign citizen types, in which you're like, actually, that flag says that I don't have to say what you
ah,
said, or
Well, that was going to be my next plug. I mean, I have a whole program where if you get
oh,
pulled
you have a
over,
pirate radio station.
I got a card. You hand the police off. You don't say anything. Not sir, not ma'am, nothing.
uh,
Um, but yeah. So I mean, I think that's all there in that, and then just also the again, you can read it on those multiple levels. You can read it on the sort of physical level, but you can read it on the metaphysical level and sort of think like he's talking about just the inscrutability of God or of nature, and just like why is it this way? Why are we born of woman? Why in agony? And why do we die finally alone? Shorn from this world. It's mysterious. I mean, and I have my own personal answers. I have my own religious answers, but those wouldn't be good enough for Kafka. And there's something to be admired in the soul of an artist who goes, who interrogates something as deeply as this. And so it's worth reading. And, I don't know what the answer is. The law, it's like it's outside of us. It's like this force that's bigger than any one person. By definition, it sort of has to be. Um, Man, as we were talking, there was something else I was thinking about how our contemporary lives, echo this. But In any event, we could talk for another hour about
Yeah.
this.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I think I'll leave it there though. Before I drag you down another rabbit hole, kicking and screaming. Why
No,
don't
I've had a great time. I'm happy to come on anytime. We should do the glass speed game at some point. That would be fun.
Wonderful. Well, this is the point where I tell people where they can find you. Again, if they are listening to this, they know you. They know where they can support your work. But why don't you tell them one more time, just for consistency's sake?
Sure, for the culture, go to artofdarkpod.com. That is the Art of Darkness podcast. We've got a great new season. Abby is going to be fantastic. She's preparing her first core episode that she's doing on her own. She's doing Coco Chanel.
Oh, interesting.
Nothing problematic there. I'm preparing Hunter S. Thompson, which should be a lot of fun. One of my heroes.
Well, you're like a
And
buffalo when it comes to controversy. You just go until the storm's gone.
you just keep listen. There's no controversy. Anybody who wants to pick a bone with me or to like talk through anything, I'm not hard to find. Like if you want to talk shit, I'm not hard to find, right? I'm online at Couchmania on Twitter. We love doing this show and we love talking about these lives of dead artists, and we're not going to stop doing it. So in any event, I'm an artist myself. I'm a playwright. Go to moderationplay.com if you're going to be in London in March. There's a production of my play. It's going to go for 3 weeks. If you're not in London, you can get a copy of the play Moderation at Broadway Play Publishing. Order a copy. I would love to see people posting pictures of the physical copy, IRL, posted on Twitter. That would be cool to see. And then beyond that, we are going to do an Art of Darkness live episode on Francisco Goya at Verderin in London on March 24th. And I think tickets are £8, which, whatever. We're going to Pound Town. Come and hang out with us in London. It's going to be a good time.
And I will definitely have all those links below, sir. So hopefully we can send a few people your way. As for me, a couple of books out, about at TR_Hudson on Twitter, doubledealer.substack.com for this podcast. For some of our other writings, you can pick up a magazine, an issue of the Double Dealer on Amazon. Specifically, I have in issue 12, I think it's 12, a story called I Trial, which is based on the trial by Franz Kafka. It was, I think it's the best thing I've ever written. But that's really not for me to say. Some people say I haven't written anything good. So go ahead and check that out. It's also on my Substack. Trying to get better at shilling, but I don't know how to end podcasts, so I will just say insert ending